What's your biggest regret from your teenage years? I wish that I had taken mom up on her offer to teach me how to cook during those teenage years. It would have been so helpful, both during college and beyond. It was a missed opportunity because she is a great cook and a natural teacher. So determined to impress my classmates that I would stretch the truth so I could brag about myself. Now I realize most of them saw through it. If I could only go back, I would slap some duct tape across younger me's mouth. All the responsible people on this thread wanted to be more irresponsible and all the irresponsible people wanted to be more responsible. I didn't stand up for myself enough. I'm still too worried about how people will react if I say no or refuse to do something. When I was 14 I poured ketchup on our back porch and lay down with my head next to it right as my mom came home from work. She came outside screaming and I laughed. She beat me with her shoe and I was grounded for the weekend. Now that I'm a parent I realize what a real de-ducking move it was and the terror she felt. As a wise woman once said, I wasted all my thin years thinking I was fat. Caring about what people think of me too much, I spent the entire time basically being who I thought everyone else wanted me to be. That I didn't spend more time with my parents before losing them. Mom when I was 19. Dad right before I turned 26. I wore a fedora to prom. And prior to prom I had asked someone out and took the rejection really badly. Said a lot of stupid shit on social media and acted out when asked about it. Also, back when it was a thing to add random people on FB, I used to post all sorts of corny, white knight one-liners. This programming stuff is cool, maybe I'll learn it one day. 10 years later I'm just getting started. Man, if I had 10 years of experience under my belt right now I would be set for life. Not becoming more involved in groups activities and not going out on weekends to parties. Cowardice. I was so unsure of myself and awkward. I know that all teenagers struggle with this, but as I look back now from my 40s, that kid in high school had so much going for him. He just didn't know it. The more he cared about fitting in, the less he fit in, and the worse people treated him. Girls were like an alien species and the future was terrifying. But it didn't have to be. Being mean to my mom. I wish I had taken more risks. I worried about getting in trouble too much. I missed out on some fun because of that, and tried to play catch up when I was 19, which led to me going a bit too hard through my 20s. I'm okay now, successful and doing well, but there's lots of things I did in my 20s that I might not have done had I got it out of my system in my teens. I'm just lucky things turned out okay for me. 31 now. Blacked out for a second and hurt my bird. I felt and still feel so terrible about it. Still a teen, but I wish I focused less on isolating myself early on in high school and being a loner with a me versus them mentality. I've stunted myself socially and dug myself into a hole. To be fair, a lot of it stemmed from mental health issues and unresolved trauma, but I was also stubborn as hell and waited way too long to seek help and grow past all of it. Not doing more productive stuff, and drinking too much. It was fun, but sometimes it was very unnecessary and could have done lots of stuff with that time. Also more 6. Not applying for every scholarship that was available for college. Being shy and awkward around girls. Cliche, but I lost a lot of friends due to excessive online gaming. I kept refusing to go out with them and socializing in general. Plus when college hit I didn't know how to talk to people and how to make friends. Ongoing process. Seeing school as a joke, skipping class, smoking weed, making fun of the nerds. I got a good job with a decent pay, but sometimes I wonder how my life would look if I had studied more. Popping my first pimple, to the point that I can't stop. I spent far too many years beating myself up to the brink of suicide over being gay. I wish I could have been a teenager today. Things have changed so much in the last 15 years. Still, I'm glad for those today. Honestly, being more proactive on my education. I could have gotten a scholarship, but I thought getting scholarships were pathetic and was so prideful about it. I didn't know it back then, but I'm kicking myself now with so much money I put in when I look at my 1098 tuition forms for the government. Getting that girl pregnant and becoming a father at 17. Also, the self-harm. Being in a long-term relationship. I wish I was single and partied and ducked around. Instead, I wasted my time with my ex and never dated other guys when I was younger. Breaking up with the nicest guy halfway through final year of school. I regret breaking up with him in general, but also it ruined what should have been an epic time of our life. Since we had all our friends in common, it just sucked. Lots of awkward behavior at parties. Drunk and yelling, crying. And that's just what he was doing, never mind me. My sister had cancer and it really affected my relationship with my girlfriend. Sometimes I would just shut down. I really wish I'd handled myself better because she and I were really in love. And I think it was the main contributing factor to us eventually breaking up. Not going for the girls I liked. Looking back, I can't believe how many girls I thought were out of my league I ended up having success with once I found my nerve. I'm not a super handsome dude either. I think it's just a matter of confidence. Not keeping up with my friends. It's hard to believe, but the last day of high school was the last day I saw most of them. Only in the last few years I've found some of them through Facebook, but things are different now. Not spending enough time with my mum. She passed away when I was 16 and I wish I had done more with her. My cringy emo phase is definitely up there. Didn't really listen to much emo music. The closest was maybe Bright Eyes, like the Fevers and Mirrors album. But I wrote a lot of itty poetry and had the look. I won't post the poetry because it ISA for too cringe. Cute. But here is a CD one found with some of the titles of the poems to give you an idea of just how bad it was. And here are some of the pictures that used for my profile on my MySpace and Xanga pages back in the day. Here is my yearbook picture from that year as well. Thankfully, I grew out of it by my senior year, but it was such a regrettable phase. Studied, worked hard, kept my nose clean, and made the sensible decision almost every time. Giant ducking mistake. I should have gotten drunk, stoned, shot up, and made every irresponsible decision presented to me. I fell into a massive depression and spent most of my time dwelling on not wanting to be alive. Didn't enjoy those years at all. Would have worked harder on not being so mopey and sad all the time. Not walking away from some itty friends sooner than I did. Chewing tobacco. 30 years later and dealing with the fallout. Constantly itching about my problems and not listening to others. Not trying to get the best grades in school that I was capable of. It was the 60s and 70s. I literally can't remember turning in any homework. I brought sci-fi books to school and read them during class, with the textbook held in front. I half listened to the teacher while doing this. Got B grades in most of my classes, if I'd actually applied myself. That I worried myself sick over what people thought of me. I was in a constant state of anxiety over it. In reality, I was a pretty and fairly popular girl, but thanks to my hypercritical mother, I never would have believed that I was anything but hideous. Not working out. 29 years old and regret not lifting sooner. Not being more selective about the friends I made. I thought I was a real loser, which I was, but largely because I had that idea in my head to begin with, and I felt I really couldn't be too picky. As a result, I was sort picking from a social slush pile of people who would use me, were generally emotionally unstable, or were too wounded to really be a good friend. It turns out, making social connections is work. You can't just be interesting. You have to show people you are, and they want you to show you are interested in them as well. And flaunting how kind and giving you are is a bit pathetic because being kind and generous is a minimum requirement for a friend. I thought I was being shunned, but mostly people were just busy with their own lives and friends and barely knew I existed. Not asking out that cute redhead on my senior class. I mean, what did I had to lose? Being the secret side piece for the popular guy in high school. I was an outcast and didn't have a lot of friends. He was the star football player and everyone wanted to be him. He was in my algebra class. He asked for my number on a note. I was super naive. He only ever wanted 6. We would either meet up somewhere at night or he'd come to my house when my mother wasn't home. We would quickly do it and then he'd quickly leave. And then he would pretend he didn't know me at school. Worst decision ever. Oh man. I have so many. Allowing my abusive stepmother to isolate me from the other side of my family. Acting like a psycho nice guy to the girl I had a crush on. Staying in an unhealthy relationship for a couple years too long. Hiding on my computer all day instead of being social. Not coming out and transitioning earlier even though I knew I should. My teen years really sucked. And I got so depressed over my parents telling me they were the best years of my life. I'm 30 now and life is 1000x better. So many missed signals from so many girls. I probably could have had more fun in high school. Oh well. Quitting golf. It was my one natural talent that I could have made a living off of when I was 12. After playing for, maybe, 2 years or so, I already had a single digit handicap and was beating guys that had played for 10 plus years. My teachers had pegged me to be PGA material. I found this out when I ran into one of them a few years after I stopped taking it seriously. He sounded very let down to hear I had stopped. Now when I play I still sort of have it. But I'm nowhere near as good as I was back then. I hit maybe 4-stroke 10 of my shots like I used to. With a lot of swearing in between at the range lol. You live and learn Nasaria. If you're actually really great at something, stick with it. Otherwise you'll end up looking back wondering what could have been. On a positive note, makes for a good time at Top Golf when I go with people who don't know I used to play. Not being that age again. I was the best pitcher out there. My fastball smoked. Hurting my ex-GF and not sacrificing my own happiness for the time being to get her as little sadness as possible. I was better equipped to handling it than she was is. Edit. Sorry for the confusion. Misspelled the first line. Not teen but I was 9 in a new country. I got lost coming out of a shopping mall and ended up by a busy highway intersection. There was a pedestrian tunnel under the road and as I approached it I heard a girl screaming and a guy yelling shut up. Shut up. And looking back she was definitely getting raped. I was already scared because I was lost and I looked to the road and cars were zooming by. I knew I should help but there was no one around and it took me an hour and a half to walk home. As I'd spent my money for the bus. Poor girl. I can still hear it all vividly. And I would like to go back and be able to do something. Even if I just screamed into the tunnel he probably would have split. Not driving. I decided not to get my license until I was 18 because I wanted to annoy my parents. Looking back, I could have done a lot if I just drove on my own. But the satisfaction that comes from knowing that my parents suffered is also good. Assuming that just because I was horny that I was emotionally ready for sex. Sleeping too much. I should have been more active and just done anything but sit around. I had the strength and could have done more. Now I miss that vitality. I think playing football. I absolutely loved it. But head took a pounding I'll never understand the effects of. And right now 20 years later my knee hurts terribly. Drinking. I became an alcoholic at an early age. Relished in the thought of it's so cool to be a 17-year-old alcoholic. Lost so many jobs, girlfriends, friends and burned bridges with family. Coming up on 3 years clean now. But damn, if I could go back in time, that is the one thing I would change. Not choosing the right 4-year high school, meaning you could only apply when you were about to start your freshman year, to apply in. Losing my virginity when I did. I wasn't prepared and it ended up ducking with the rest of my teenage years and still ducks with me. I'm all for it if you're ready. Do it right and it can be a good experience. I lost everything over this guy and it's the biggest regret of my life. Let alone my teenage years. Also not reaching out and being more involved. I look back and wish I had done so much more to be productive and fulfilling during high school especially. Hanging out with the wrong people. And making my mom's life even more difficult. I regret that one the most. I'm reading this as a teen and going duck. I wanted to do that. I cared too much about what other people thought of me. I didn't learn until much later that it's none of my business. Not seeking help after sexual assault at 16. only now talking about it in therapy. I'm 52. Going to public school. I would be better off if I was homeschooled. Probably my attitude. I should have fostered better relationships and not had a massive chip on my shoulder. Being scared to talk to people even if it was someone I actually did get along with when they talked to me. I didn't do anything interesting. I went to the smart person school, did my extracurricular it, let my parents, mostly my mom, bully me into doing the whole legal scout garbage, and hated my entire time there. Ended up going off to college and didn't know how to set boundaries. Wound up being incessantly harassed by a gay guy that tried to get me drunk and fill me up regularly. So I dreaded going out anywhere on campus because he was always find me and attach himself to me. Having some independence now is great, aside from the crushing sense of loneliness all the time. On the bright side, since then I've started doing it, like going to concerts, getting tattoos. Currently I'm having a good time with the new motorcycle I've got, and I've got a job I actually like. But I feel like I wasted a lot of time trying to accomplish a bunch of it and it ended up being pointless and I just hated it. Not being more outgoing. I was shy and never had the courage to ask a girl out, even though I was friends with a few. Found out later on that they liked me and probably would have dated me. Trying to save myself for marriage. Should have been ducking this whole time. Biggest regret? That I didn't take more advantage of my youth. Now that I know that youth excuses heaps. Being too afraid that I would fail again to even take it till I was in my early 20s. Lost hints from girls who really liked me. Also my student years weren't better. Lost so obvious hints from 2 girls. Now I am single like an idiot. Now that I have my very own 18-year-old, I feel bad for what a bratty teenager I was. Sorry mom, I love you. I've never been to a dance class because I'm shy. I hope I am not the only one. Intentionally sabotaging my adult life. Turns out it's really hard to unduck yourself. Whoa. I wasted too many years doting on a crush. What a dumbass I was. I didn't take my academics seriously. High school was easy and I could get by on not doing what I didn't want to. I chose a major I liked and had no idea what I'd do with it. How much money I was missing out on. Well, turns out when your well grade is based on 4 tests and a paper, you can't really get picky on what work you wanna do and how much you feel like studying. It was a huge kick in the balls. Not getting done with my science and piloting courses. Cared too much about being in a relationship. I started smoking pot when I was 13 and by 17 I was addicted to opiates. I got clean a few years after and now it's almost a decade later. Wish I didn't get so carried away with it. Totally ducked up college for me. I have a great job now and I love what I do. But I still think my life would have had a different trajectory had I not gotten swept up in drug use as much as I did. Don't have any. All my decisions made me into me and I am happy right now. No point in thinking about what could have been when I can enjoy what I currently have. Not committing myself to properly learn a 2nd and 3rd language. Never got a GF. And now it's harder cause I lack experience. Still didn't find one. Not pursuing the girl I had a crush on. Constantly doubting my feelings. Other than that, no regrets.